Nothing new. So did President Obama plough any new ground whilst in Africa? Richard Joseph is a Brookings Institution scholar. He was in Ghana to listen to President Obama's speech and to gauge reaction. He joins us now from Chicago with his impressions of this. It's fascinating, isn't it? Because the story seems to be getting more interesting as the days pass by, and he seems to have tapped into something that a lot of people were thinking but no one was really saying.
Yes, well, Max, thank you very much for having me on. What President Obama has put together in that eloquent and very forceful lecture is what many people have known. It was mentioned in the interview about him speaking to the leaders, but he was also speaking to the people of Africa. And I don't think there's anything that he said that he didn't know themselves. But also, this is such an important breakthrough for an American presidency. To be able to speak so frankly and so directly and so knowledgeably, and to stress governance and relating governance to all of the topics that he has brought up. So this is a very important moment, and that speech on July 11th is going to be a very important document going forward.
Yeah, you suggest it's groundbreaking. Yeah. He was very bold, wasn't he? Certainly, he would have upset a few people's in power across Africa, wouldn't he? Do you think his own background has anything to do with the way this was received by Africans generally?
Well, it is known, you know, his book, the two books that he has published is popular and is read all over, and his life story is very much known. But, and Obama was able to draw on that. I mean, you know, his background in terms of community development work, his own struggle to get to the presidency and what he is able to bring forward, and also his own childhood experiences, which was a very difficult one that he has been able to surmount. But he's also been able to do, you know, we've been waiting for a long time here in the United States to know what this government's policy towards Africa is going to be. And he has certainly laid it out very, very crisply. And so that will be known all over the continent as to not only some of the specifics, but also the attitude of him saying, you know, this is really going to be Africa going to have to take the lead. And when you do the right things, we'll be there to support you.
And taking policy forward, Richard, was quite a challenge in many ways, wasn't it? Because people were expecting a lot from him on Africa. And yet you could argue that actually President Bush's policy on Africa was seen as very successful as well and left a legacy. So is President Obama building on that? Is he taking the positive side of that and building on it? Or is he starting his own policy?
Yes, well, with regard to President George W. Bush, I would say that there were major advances. And remember, we're judging it on the basis of what went before. And there's not much to compare it what went before. But there were major advances in the areas of global health and with the Millennium Challenge account and dealing with some of the conflict situations. But what we really have here was really just a major departure. Where he is actually now talking about, you know, the importance of building institutions, you know, talking about democracy in such a strong way, talking about corruption and bribery. I mean, we've never had that before. So, yes, he is going to build on what President Bush did, but this is really a sea change. I mean, this really sets the United States and Africa on a course that we have, frankly, not seen before. And I also want to add that it's also a challenge to other leaders in the world. Because now that the President of the United States have spoken, and, you know, his comments, for example, about countries that call themselves democracies and have a little sprinkling of elections, I mean, he's really saying, you know, enough is enough. Let us really address the issues frankly, speak frankly, support those that are doing the right thing. And he also said isolate those who are really not serving their people and who are repressing, and even use such words as tyranny. So this is a major departure. It's going to be hard for some people to swallow, but I think over time they're going to recognize that this is one of the most important statements backed with real commitment that we have seen from the United States in a very, very long time.
Richard Joseph in Chicago, thank you very much for that insight. Remember, you can watch that interview with President Obama, an interview that answered